I think somebody said that the beginning of my video should have some kind of music or something to let it know when it's getting started. I do have an audio clip that I usually play when I start a video, but I haven't on the last couple of classes. I think I should do that. Hey everybody, welcome, and thank you for joining me tonight. Sorry about the late notice on the class link. I apologize about that. I was running a little bit behind today. Yeah, I was running behind today. It's been a busy day. So what we're going to do is we're going to hang out for a moment. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask them while we let everybody pile in. We're about 6 minutes early. I figured I'd come in. I saw Dave and Alan and Todd and Debbie pop in, so I thought I would pop in and say hi to you all. Yep. Oh my. Hey Alan, I got your request to join the Digital Woodcarver Owners Facebook, but classified group. I'll approve that after the class so you can get in there and take a look around. Guys, don't forget about that classifieds page. If you have something that you want to list or sell or anything, throw it on there. You never know. Hey, Ronnie. Hey, Mike and Steven. How are you doing? While we're sitting here chatting, I'm running my Vectric update, so it'll be ready in just a second. Gonna be making some shelf corbels tonight. Show you some different ways and things to think about. Making some interesting little shelf brackets, shelf corbels, whatever you want to call them. While we're kicking it, waiting for everyone to join in, if you guys have any questions or anything, throw them up there. I'll be happy to answer them. Excellent. Mike. Hey. Oh. So guys, the other day, what was it? Not too long ago, I finally, after a while, I finally got a chance to go out and spend a day and have some fun. Went out to a place called the Badlands and went motorcycle riding, four-wheeler riding, and dirt bike four-wheeler riding, and we're riding in a Ranger. And I can ride a motorcycle. I'm pretty good with off-road vehicles and things, and I'll be doggone if I didn't hit a patch of soft sand and wipe out on my dirt bike. Not my dirt bike, but the dirt bike I was riding. Oh, those handlebars went right into my chest, and I think I cracked a rib. It's killing me. It was like 6 days ago. It still hurts. 6 or 7 days ago. Let's see here. Any chance you're going to list everyone that has signed up for the DWC class in Indy? Todd, I don't have that list. Billy Bro and them does, but that is kind of a possibility. I don't know. I got to ask Bro, see what he thinks about putting, or even the customers too, that registered and all, if they want to be known. I'm sure they do. It's going to be a meet and greet, but still, I'll let Bro make that decision. we got 3 seats left. 3 seats left. So be sure to register for that. But yeah, I'll check with Burl and see if he wants to post. I've been reaching out to some of them because if anyone that's coming out wants to do a little bit of show and tell, bring a project that that they've made on the digital wood carver and talk about the trials and tribulations and learning process or finishing techniques they may have used on it or something. Anything like that. Hoping that we can get some kind of guest speakers to do a little show and tell between the lessons and stuff. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, Ronnie, I scared myself. I didn't want to get hurt. It knocked the wind out of me. Oh my goodness, man! When that handlebar smashed into my upper rib, it knocked the wind out of me. I thought I was dying. I'm 44 years old. I can't be doing that young stuff anymore. But it was fun. Oh, it was a nice, good time. I really enjoyed it. It was kind of a nice little getaway to just ride the hills and the dunes and the trails and not, really have to think about anything other than, stay on the track and not hit a tree. But it was a nice little getaway, a little mental relief and stuff. Because my customers know, digital wood carver customers know, I'm at the shop, I'm at home, I'm on the phone 18 hours a day with different customers and trainings and classes and stuff. So I have no life. I don't go out. I don't do anything like that. But so for that one day, it was nice to kind of just be able to just go out and be carefree and have a little fun. But I wasn't expecting to fall. Todd, I just, what I said was I'll check with Burl to see if he's going to post any kind of listing like that. It's kind of, that would be up to him. That would be up to him. So I'll let him make that call and all. But I am reaching out to the customers that are registered to see if anyone want to do a show and tell. That's what I was saying. Bring a project. Talk about the trials and tribulations of that project, finishing techniques or things, or just talk about their experience in general. Yeah, Ron, I'm hoping to be. I love riding horses. I haven't ridden horses in a long time. I used to own 2 blanket Appaloosas, and I miss horseback riding. But if I still had my horses, I'd be riding at 75 too. All right, it's 7:21. So let's go ahead and kind of get this ball rolling. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about making shelf corbels, shelf brackets, shelf corbels. I think the technical term is corbels. And we're going to talk about some different things. Now, I'm going to be working in the Vectric VCarve Pro. So the projects that we're going to be kind of looking at tonight are going to be able to be made in Desktop, Pro, or Spire on any of the machines and everything. And something nice, little decorative shelves and stuff, all kinds of neat little things. I would like to, if I do have some time towards the end of the class, I would like to, show a little bit about 3D modeling a shelf corbel in Aspire if I can get into that. But right now, I want to show how to just kind of we're going to use some 3D designs as well as 2D, but we're going to just see what just kind of see what we can come up with now. Unfortunately, I was running late today, so I have not had one iota of a chance to prepare for this class. So everything that we're going to be going through this class is from scratch. The ideas, the concepts, the thought process, and also there's bound to be a few mistakes. Hang in with me, and we'll learn how to get through them together. But I think for the most part, we'll do okay. Yeah, how do you like them old last-minute class preparations? Let's see here. All right, let's switch out so you're not looking at my ugly mug. Let's switch over to our Vectric platform. All right, tonight's class, we're going to create a new file. Now, I'm going to do this as a 2-sided project. Really for the first couple of projects, they could really be done as a 1-sided project, profile cutting all the way through. But I'm going to look at them as a 2-sided project because I'd like a wide corbel. Let me see if I can get through that tonight saying that thing. Corbel. I'd like to be able to I'd like to have like 1.5 inch wide, at least, corbel. I mean, you know, I've got shelves in the house, and I've seen shelves, you know, where they have thinner, like 3/4 inch corbels, you know, things like that, and all. But I'd like to have a little bit thicker one. I like the thicker ones. And so my project board is going to be set up as a double-sided job in the job setup, and we're going to go 14 inches wide on the material, and along, let's call it, along the x-axis, and then about 8 inches wide, and then 1.5 inches thick. Now, there's no, this board, the actual work area can be sized to any size. I just want my corbels to be able to fit, and actually I need to go 9 1/4. We'll just go like a regular 1x10 type of thing, 9 1/4. Because my corbel is going to have, from the flat top where the shelf's going to go to the bottom of the corbel, I'm going to go probably about 8.5 inches. So, you know, see there. And some last minute pop-ins. Welcome, William, Peter, Travis. You know, thanks, guys. All right. So now with me, I am going to be using my wasteboard / wedge jig to carve this, and I like touching off my Z0 position off the jig. And the reason why, let me tell you the reason why I do this. I don't think I've really ever explained this, but when you reference off your bottom of your material, whatever you're touching off to, whether it be your tabletop or your wasteboard, preferably a wasteboard because you're cutting through your material type of thing. But by touching off to the top or the bottom of the material, which would be the top of my wasteboard, that makes that point 0, absolute 0. And so when I'm cutting through my material, let's say I'm doing a profile cut on a 3/4 inch piece, when I type in 3/4, I'm going, when it cuts, it's cutting down from 3/4 down to 0. It's not going to go below 0. So therefore it doesn't spoil my spoil board. It doesn't beat it up and carve into it and everything. It cuts cleanly through the material, but it barely kisses the top surface of my wasteboard, and you know, keeps my wasteboard nice and pristine, so I don't have to keep surface planing it all the time. And that's my reasoning for working off the machine bed, which is in, you know, the bottom of the material. And I touch off on the machine bed on both sides. Now for the XY datum position, because of the jig that I'm using, it does have a 90-degree fence in the bottom left corner, and it does reference off the bottom left corner of the material. So that will be my XY datum position. But again, this can be set up any way that you need, as a one-sided project or a two-sided project, different size materials and all to fit your needs. You know what I mean? But I believe I should be able to fit. I'm actually going to go, let's go 16 wide. I should be able to fit 2 corbels on here. And do well with that. Now I will be flipping my board along my y-axis and everything, and so for my two-sided project, I will be flipping along the y-axis, so I have that selected. So I'm going to click OK, and that's going to set us up and kind of get us going. Now, as an illustration, let's bring up a couple of pictures to give us kind of a looky-see at what we're going to be making. So I'll bring up Corbel 1 first. And let's get that over here. All right. So this is just a very simple, this actually is a 3/4 inch corbel. The actual main decorative part is, and then I would probably say that the 90-degree frame of this is because they used a mitered 2 pieces of 3/4 inch material to make the decorative 90-degree angle. That looks to be probably about maybe 1.25 inches wide or so. So that's, you know, that's one example of a very simple, nice little decorative 2D corbel. We're gonna look at drawing that out, and then for the second one. And of course I brought up the same one twice, so stand by. All right, let's see if I can get her over there. Get over there. I don't know how pixelated this picture is, but this one is, I would probably also say about 3/4 inches thick, and it's just kind of got this little Celtic looking pattern and everything on it. So, you know, this is just 2 very simple examples on this, and I want to look at how we would go about making, you know, something like this. Now this one here has some undercuts, almost like the weaves are a little overlapping each other and stuff. And we could achieve that, that same concept using ramping and everything with our cuts, using fluting, not ramping. I said ramping, but fluting. We could probably use ramps too as well, but fluting. And you know, but like if you have a spire actually has a tool that will do that over under kind of weave look and everything. We'll address the weaving thing, the weaving look, you know, as we go. But right now, I just want to get the actual part made. Okay. And then, you know, of course, there's all kinds of decorative corbels and things. And let's see what we can come up with. Now, oh, it's hard to breathe. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to draw a rectangle. And my rectangle, the overall width of my corbel is going to be about 8 1/4, but I also want it to be about 8 1/4 high as well. Now sometimes it all depending on the shelf. This is going to give me a little bit of overhang on the shelf and stuff. I could probably throw a 8 3/4 9-inch shelf on here and stuff and all. But you depending on the shelf size you need, you would size these appropriately and everything. And what I want to do is I like everything kind of I reference off of, even when I'm doing my profiles and things like that, I reference off of a rectangle. And we need that 90-degree angle anyway. So this just kind of gives me that, you know, that look. And now I can come in and kind of start laying out my design. Now, one of the things is I want to offset inward this rectangle. And I'm going to offset, let's close the rectangle tool. I'm going to offset, using the offset tool, inward about 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch. And on that, imagine this being my frame and everything here. I'm going to have that back piece. Now, when it comes to the actual corbels themselves, you can just make the decorative part and then, make the 2 flats that you would miter cut together to create that 90-degree angle and everything. If I were to illustrate that, let's say if we had one part here, one part here. Let me get a, oops, why am I doing that? Let me do some scissor trimming. So imagine, you've got your 2 parts mitered together to create that 90-degree turn. And then, a lot of times, someone will do that and it'll have a decorative edge on it. And then, of course, they will have a smaller inner part. And I'm just freehand drawing right now just to kind of illustrate this. They would have a smaller inner part, and that part would also generally, a lot of times do a butt joint on that, but you could also miter that as well, type of thing. And not the straightest looking angle in the world, but you know, and you can create that kind of that corbel frame type of thing, and then your decorative part would be in here. Now, one of the projects we're going to make, and I'll give you a little sneak peek, and then we're going to go drawing the 2D stuff first and all, but imagine if I came into my clip art, and let's go into the animals. I'm going to grab this seahorse here. And let's go ahead and close, mirror him. I don't want to create a mirror copy or anything. I don't want to flip it about Job Center. I just want to mirror him the other direction. And I'd probably go right about here, and then there would be some material that's connecting him back here. But you know, imagine, you know, like a, you know, a decorative little seahorse corbel, which we will be making in this class here in a moment. Yes, Ronnie, so the screen is a little blurry because I'm running at 720p, so there's not any buffering, my system isn't built up enough too much yet to get back to my 1080p. I lost a lot of you know, goodness and all that, so there is going to be a little bit of blurriness, Ronnie, on some of the buttons and everything and all. And what I'll do is I'll tell you what I'm pointing to and stuff and what I'm moving. So I was using the rectangle tool under the Create Vectors menu. It's the third icon, first row, to create the rectangles. And I was also using the line drawing tool, which is the first icon on the second row under the Create Vectors menu. And for trimming, I was using the interactive trim tool under Edit Objects menu, second row, fifth icon. So that's what we're working. But imagine, you know, like, you know, we're going to be making this two-sided seahorse project in a few moments, but not right now. So, but I just wanted to kind of give you some visuals and stuff to think about. Okay, let's get rid of some of this stuff, and I'm going to get rid of everything actually. And I'm going to go back with my 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. Now, I want to talk to you about version 9 as I go, kind of little lessons here and everything. With my rectangle tool, I can start drawing out my rectangle, and if I pause, keeping my left mouse button held down, I can just type in my 8.25, a comma, and that'll give me my width, and then 8.25, and hit the enter key to create my 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 box. I can also use the menu over here if I wanted to, but you know, I can freehand and type in those actions right away. Now, top tip of the day. One of the newest and coolest things as of version 9, you know, we're working in 9.5 right now. One of the version 9 is some of the enhanced shape editing tools or enhancements, some of the tool enhancements that are available to us. Have you ever tried to edit a shape? Let's say I have a circle here and a rectangle here, and we want to go in and edit the shape here, and we go back and we open our rectangle tool up. But now if I go to try to click on this rectangle to edit it, all I'm going to end up doing is drawing another rectangle, you know, because it's not going to let me, like, you know, touch that one that I want to do, right? Well, your shift key. So if I had my rectangle tool open and I wanted to edit this rectangle, if I hold my shift key down, it will allow me to select that shape, and then I can come in and edit it however I want. So there's a little keynote down here: to edit an existing shape, hold the shift key while selecting it. So just a little top tip. They do put the tip right here for you in your rectangle tool, but you know, some of you might not really have seen that or paid too much attention to it and just thought that would be something of interest to you. All right. Anyway, we're done with that. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to come back and let's get where we were. I'm going to offset inward that 3/4 of an inch. Okay. And this is going to be kind of my working area, my decorative working area in here. And so what I want to do with this is I'm going to basically go into node editing mode here, and I'm going to delete this node on the bottom right corner, and I'm going to delete that point so I can kind of get this triangle going on here and all. And so this is going to kind of be my working area for my decorative part of my corbel. Now, we could absolutely do some freehand drawing for some decorative shapes. We could go and grab an image, you know, a scroll type image, and trace it. We could look and see in our clip art under decorative if we have anything that would give us the ability to create a tracing of sorts, and not necessarily you know, a 3D model, but just use the actual clip art model to create a trace of a decorative design. And I have a couple. I have this flourish here that I could use. I have this kind of leafy scroll here, and let's take a look at this one. Okay, and bring that in. I'm going to rotate. Now this is a piece of clip art. It's a model. Now I'm not doing a model. I'm doing a 2D design, but I'm using the model to help me kind of draw out a little scroll design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first and foremost, I'm going to mirror this model and flip it the other way. And then I'm going to rotate it. I'm just going to freehand rotate it. Like that, slow motion. Let's go there. And then I'm going to kind of size it. Well, here, let's move it into place first. I'm going to have probably about like that. And let's see if I stretch this out a little bit. Let's rotate it some more. Right about there. All right, now what I'm going to use in the modeling tools, we have a tool called the Create Vector Boundary around a selected component. And what this will allow me to do is basically trace this model in a sense. So I'm going to use that. I've got my selected component, and I'm going to create the vector boundaries around it. And now with that, I can go ahead and delete my model to kind of give me the vector outlines for that trace. Now, on these back sides here, if I wanted to create my two shapes and things and all, I can use the subtract tool. The subtract tool is under edit objects. It's the second icon. It's basically subtracting the first selected object or the second object from the first selected. So whatever I select first is going to be what I'm going to be wanting to kind of trim, and then the second object is what I'm trimming away from it. But in this case, the tool that's going to be more appropriate for me is the trim tool, not the scissors, not the interactive trim, but just the trim tool. And so if I come into the trim tool, what this does is the last item I select is my boundary, and the first item I select is what I want to trim. And if I come in here and I grab my little decorative design first and then my little shape here second. Now, if I hit this clear everything on the outside of the boundaries what I want, if I do that, then it's going to get rid of this front part here. It's going to redraw it. And I actually want to keep that. So I'm not going to get rid of that. So what I need to do first is I need to do a little bit of object editing. And so I'm going to go into node editing mode. I'm going to insert a point on this midpoint here, and I'm going to pull this point out a little bit because that line is going to get deleted in a moment, but still, I'll leave it there for the time being. And so let's go back and do that again. I want to select my corbel or my decorative design, and then I want my boundary, and I want to clear everything outside of that boundary away. Okay, now what that does for me is when it clears everything away, it redraws that vector, giving me a closed vector, so I have a closed vector here. And, I'm not creating open vectors by doing that, but if this were going to be one solid piece in a sense, then I most likely would maybe weld these together where I would trim these intersecting lines away and everything and make this one whole piece. But it's not going to be one whole piece because this shape here is going to be recessed in a little bit. So I'm going to have my kind of piece that's being cut out here, and then there's going to be a step down before my shape gets created. So it's going to be kind of recessed in. Does anyone else have an echo, or is it just... Does anyone else have an echo, or is it just Debbie? Does anyone else have an echo, or is it just Debbie? Let us know. Alrighty. Aphrodite. Okay. So now let's go ahead and do some vector trimming. So I'm going to right click on this node, and I'm going to cut the vector here. Right click on this node and cut the vector here. And that will allow me to get rid of this line. On this vector here, I'm going to use the extend tool, my extend tool, and I'm going to extend this line down to here, and I'm going to extend this one over to here. Okay. Now, with that, I can go ahead and trim this line away. Now, I have some decisions to make. On my decorative piece here, do I want, let me group that together. Do I want to maybe kind of stretch this out a bit? Okay, create that unique shape, kind of give me more of a cool. Maybe, try to stretch it down a bit. All right. That'll work. Okay. Now, these areas, this area is going to be remaining, right? And this area in here is going to be cut away, and this area back here, all these little pocket areas are going to be cut away. So I need to really think about that depending on what bit I'm using to cut away when I profile cut these parts. Because if I use a 1/4 inch end mill, then I'm going to get a completely different look here because the 1/4 inch radius will not fit up into this tight point. So do I want to do some changes or keep them how they are? And also I got to really consider that. Now for this 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 corbel, let's go ahead and let's think about what I want to do with this top piece. Now on this top part here, my 90 degree, I may not want to just have a square, boring looking piece. I might want to recess. So everybody has an echo? Everybody has an echo? Hold on a minute. All right. who's got their headphones off? Who's causing an echo? Is it me? Hold on a moment. Let's see here. Give me a second. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. So does everybody else have, is the echo still there, guys? All right, everybody still got an echo. Bear with me. Let me see what I can do. Let me know if you can still hear me at all. Let me see. Yeah, no sound. There's sound now. But let me know if you can still hear me at all. No, David, I wasn't being beeped out. I had my microphone off. I hit the wrong button. All right, so better now. So okay, so let me know. Let's talk randomly. Let's get back to where we were. Let me know if the echo continues as of starting now. Okay, so what I was saying is now we're going to start kind of creating the profiles, but we need to think about. Excellent, thank you. Okay, good. We need to think about. Sorry about the echoes, guys. I had an audio capture on as well as my microphone, so it was catching it twice. The thing I want to think about now is on this 90-degree angle here. Do I want it to be just a plain Jane boring piece, or would I like to see it kind of if I was looking at a side view where it kind of let's see if I can do this. Not the best illustration, but where there's some kind of decorative like step down and everything, and then the part and all. Of course, it wouldn't have this tooth hook at the beginning of it and all. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Let's create a little bit of a molding, if you will. Now, what I want is for this molding piece to kind of start in here and trim down inward. And therefore, I'm going to, what am I going to do? What are we going to do here? I want this to be exact, so we're not going to fly by the seat of the pants. Bear with me a second here. From this corner, I want to come back. I'm going to create a right click on my guideline and create a relative guide in the negative direction. I'm going to come back. This is 3/4, so let's go 3/8. And then if I grab a guide up here, I want to come back up 3/8. Up is going to be positive. And that will give me the opportunity to draw my polyline along the guideline here. Spacebar to finish it off. And now I can get rid of my guidelines to create this. This is going to end up being my drive rail for my molding toolpath. And for the molding toolpath, now I've got to come up with a profile. What do I want this to do? And if I were turning this on its side, let's see if we can try to illustrate this out with my molding toolpath and everything. I would like to see what would I like to see? There's something I'd like to see. Let's see here. I want it to step in, so let me get my line tool here. I want it to, I'm going to go back into node editing and I'm going to insert a point right about here and make this a straight line. And then I would like to see it step in and I've got to make this on a much smaller scale. If I were to rotate this 90 degrees, I could very simply hit the number 9 key on your keyboard. By the way, the number 9 key on your keyboard rotates 45 degrees. But I would like to see something on this side part here, a very small where it maybe comes out a little bit or comes in. I can't be too dramatic, so I've got to figure out exactly how I want to do this. And so let's start off simple. Let's go into node editing on this. I do not need that. When you're drawing a profile, you do not use the bottom span. You know, you do not use the bottom span on this. And so we'll insert a point, insert another point. And if I select this top point here and I hold down my shift key and I grab this bottom one, then that bottom one I can align to that first one that I selected by either X or Y. If I hit the letter X, it will pull that into alignment. It kind of creates that little you know, step down for me. And now I can come in on this node here and use my down arrow key and just kind of pull it down where I want. I will grab this to right about here, and I'm just going to do a very simple bead of sorts. And I am going to use my fillet tool. I'm kind of all over the place here. I'm using my fillet tool, and I'm going to use an 1/8 inch radius and see if I can throw... Oh, I want to do that. Let's try a 1/16 of an inch radius. There we go. And so I'd like to see some kind of where, imagine this being the top of my part where it kind of recesses into my other piece. And this is on the side, recessing in on the side. If we were to, once again, so you can kind of see where I'm going with this, if I were to reference the part again, you see how we have, you know, it comes down and then it rounds over. It's like it's basically just running a round over bit, you know, type of deal on there. Well, I'm going to use my molding toolpath to help me kind of make this shape, and that's what I'm attempting, if I do it right. And so this distance here is 3/8 of an inch. So my width here needs to be 3/8 of an inch. My width on my part needs to be 3/8 of an inch. Let's look at our job size. And I was close. I need to be 0.375. And now let's see what we what happens when we use our molding toolpath. If I select my molding toolpath over here, and I hold down and I grab my drive rail and I hold on my shift key and I grab this part here, you see how it's you know, coming up to the back side, and I don't want it on the back side, I want it on the front side. So if I grab this green node and reverse the direction, it will pull that down into there. Okay, and so if I were to create, I'm going to use an 1/8 inch end mill, just a very simple 1/8 inch end mill for this, and I'm going to calculate this toolpath. If we preview it, and if I were to create the final profile cut on this part, just as an example, and let's say that I'm cutting all the way through my material, which I wouldn't be because it's a double-sided job. There's 2 of these sides, but just for visual purposes, I'll use my 1/4 inch end mill, and I want to be on the outside of the line. Now, for this, I'm not cutting the deck. We're nowhere near. I'm just cutting out this little frame real quick. And if I were to profile cut that, if I were to profile cut that, if I cut all the way through my material, which is 1.5 inches, not 3/4, let's try that again. 1.5, calculate. All right, let's get rid of this. And let me turn off let's go with a maple, something light that you guys can kind of see the detail and stuff. All right, if I were to turn this kind of somewhat, let it non-pixelate, bear with me a second while we move around. Okay. You see what's happening here is my profile is backwards. My little recess is coming in up towards the top, and I need it to come in towards the bottom, not this way. So I have to reverse not only the direction that I had to reverse on that profile, not only did I have to reverse the direction on the, on the drive rail, but I also have to reverse the direction on my little profile. And let's recalculate that. And let's reset that preview and preview both of those toolpaths again. Okay, I end up with this kind of decorative. Let me see if I can pull this down. Now, the one thing I would like to see is a little bit more of a lip down here, not this very shallow lip that we see here. I'd like to have a little bit more of a straight lip. So let's do a little bit of editing. And so that little lip here is not going to cut it for me. If I were to measure this, it's 80,000. So I want to go a little bit wider with that. So what I will do is go into node editing mode, and I'm just gonna grab, which one is it? Let me look at my 3D cut again. Let me see which one exactly it is. So it's the step down, and then it kind of runs in. A little step down, runs in. So that should be this part here, which means if I grab this, it's hard sometimes to get disoriented the way the direction of it is, so bear with me a second. At least I get a little disoriented. So my fatter part is there, and then it's coming up. Okay, so I should be able to grab this here, and I should be able to bump that out a little bit. I'm using my left arrow key. I just selected the nose, use my left arrow key to kind of pull that out. And if I come back into this swept profile and recalculate it, it should, let me see here if it gave me a little bit more. Let's see what that did for me. No, I'm still ass backwards. All right. All right. So what I'm going to do is, I'm still backwards on that one. All right, stop there. We can stop that. I don't need to see the rest of that because I'm moving the wrong dealio. So what that bottom part is this part here. And so what I want is a little bit of a straight edge. So let me add in another node. I'm going to take and grab this vector here first, this one second. I'm going to use my Y key to pull that up into alignment. And then I'm going to bump that out a little bit. Okay. So that should give me a little bit more of a lip here on this bottom part. So let's one more time. Let's go in and let's calculate this toolpath. It should be good. And I want to, on my profile toolpath, the bit is, you see where my model is, right? You see where my model is, it's down below. So it's cutting that lip off. So what that means is I need to raise up my guideline a little bit and raise it out. You know what I mean, Vern? So let's turn that off. Thought this was going to be an easy one. What is my overall width here on this? I could just resize it, but then that kind of defeats the purpose. 0.4088. 0.4088. Well, if this line is 3/8 of an inch from here, then I need to move it up an additional bit. So if I use the move tool, I'm going to go on my y-axis, which is up and down, 0.4088 minus 0.375, because that's where I'm already at. Hit the equal key on my keyboard, and that's the remaining distance that I need to move. I will be moving up in the positive direction, so I can pop that up just that little bit. Same thing here. If I come in and 0.4088 minus 0.375, and that should be on my x-axis, and I want to go to the right, which is a negative number. Can move that back. And as far as the joining of these two, I can use my extend tool. I can click here and then click here, and it'll wrap that corner for me. Okay. So now if I go back into my swept profile toolpath and I come into my part here, if I got to reverse the direction of the node. Okay, you can see my lines now no longer extend past my part, meaning that I moved exactly where I needed to move to. And it's not creating it all the way around, so bear with me a second. Let's close this tool. I got to join my two vectors back together. These two guys have to be joined as one. This one and this one. Going to have one open vector, which is what I want. Now I can come back in and properly calculate that toolpath. All right, let's see what damage we have done. Reset my preview. Preview all the toolpaths. Oh, before I preview all the toolpaths, I want my bit to step away from my part on both sides. By my 1/8 inch bit, I'm going to have it step away in a positive direction, away from my profile line, about a 32nd of an inch. And I'm going to calculate that. Okay, let's preview the two toolpaths, and if we get past this part, we'll be doing good. Lord have mercy. All right. So now if we zoom in and let me pull this down, and let's look at it down the y-axis here. Oh, oh, you might get a little bit of buffering. I froze up my part. You may get a little buffering, guys, because I froze up my part. Oh. Uh-oh. Uh-oh, Scadio. All right. Let it regenerate. See what I did? This is a good reason for me right here, right now. This is a good reason for me to go ahead and save some of this work that I've done so I don't lose it all and I don't mess myself up. So let me do that real quick. Let's save this as Corbel. All right. So now when it regenerates, we can see that all it's going to do is it's going to step in a little bit, a small little arc, and then a small little flat lip. That's all I want because it's going to be on both sides. All it does, all I'm trying to achieve here is just a little bit of a decorative edge, almost like a little round over type deal. Nothing major. I'm not trying to go too extreme or extravagant with that. Okay, so that's what I want. Now, that cut on my 3D view, this cut here, I need to know from my 1.5 inches, the top of my board, when this gets cut, this lip here, what it gets cut down to. Okay? And so what I need is, if I look down at the bottom right corner of my program, I will see the XYZ numbers. And if I look through here, then I'm pretty much right about 1.3 in my deepest area. 1.3, let's call it. And that means that's what that tells me is on this part, I need that to start at that point. And now the reason why mine is 1.3 is because the top of my board is 1.5 inches. Remember, I'm touching off on my wasteboard. I've got an 1.5 inch piece of material on there, so the top of my board is 1.5 inches with my wasteboard being 0. Okay? So that's why on my 1.3, instead of being, you know, like 0 down to 1/8 of an inch or whatever it may be, I'm counting backwards. My program, because I'm working off the bottom, is counting backwards. So I need to, remember that. Now, all right, let's go ahead and let's look at how we're going to accomplish cutting this part out. And is this part going to be separate from the other part to where I will be assembling them together? Or is this going to be one consecutive part? If it is going to be one consecutive part, then I need to be mindful that if I were to try to do a profile cut on this, what's going to happen? My router bit's going to come up here and it's going to profile cut into my frame piece and everything. So I need to be doing what's considered pocket cuts for the most part. And I'm going to be profile cutting this out and everything here. but I need to be doing pocket cuts here to cut this opening out. And, you know, in here, this little part here, and of course this bigger part to cut that out. And so I've got to redraw my vectors. I've got to redraw my vectors a little bit. So let's go ahead and first and foremost, let's move out off of our back piece and down so you can see the lines and you can see what I'm trying to achieve. Okay, so we're going to go into node editing mode. And on this part here, the first thing I do is ungroup it so I can, you know, work on its nodes. Is I'm going to basically be deleting this span, this line between these 2 points. Same thing here as well. I'm going to be deleting this span. And then on here, my other straight span, all my straight parts basically, I'm going to be deleting. And then of course down here at the bottom, let's scroll down a little bit and get this in the middle of the screen so you can see, I'm going to delete that span. Okay. And so what this ends up doing is now I have to kind of rejoin some of these vectors and all. Now my individual lines and all, I'm going to leave them as individual lines because I'm going to be doing a simple profile cut on them. But what I have to be very, very aware of, that when I'm profile cutting here, that my bit is going to create a radius at the end of these lines into my part. Now, this alone may give me a reason to where I want to cut this part out separately and then just attach it, you know, glue it to the other part. You know, very good, valid reason. But if I want to be a little adventurous and make this one piece corbel, no gluing required, blah, 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 then I've got to kind of think how I'm going to be machining these things. One I've got to be very mindful of is when my pocket cut, this center area comes and cuts in here, what bit is going to fit in between here? Not my 1/4 inch end mill. You know, it's not going to fit between those lines when it's cutting out this kind of waved pattern here and stuff. So I've got to think about that. I'm going to have to widen this area up. Well, same thing here. I've got to come in and I've got to create my areas here where my creating my little pockets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part here, and let's get out of node editing mode. I'm going to take this part here and I'm going to join it with a straight line. Okay, that's going to be one pocket area. This piece here, I'm going to join that with a straight line. That's going to be my second pocket area. And then now the rest of this area here is going to be a pocket area, but I've got to really kind of draw this one in. You know, I got to create my little 90-degree line here. Now, I'm just very simply going to take and grab this end here, and I'm going to come up 90 degrees. And what I'm going to do is, so I know where to turn my corner, is I'm going to bring my mouse over to this end line and wake up this node, and it's going to give me, let's wake up that point, it's going to give me my reference line. See if I can wake that node up, that point there. Okay, it's going to give me my reference line, and that way I can come in and, you know, turn in. Now my 90-degree line actually dead ends there, and so this is going to be my pocket area. So what do I do with this little straggler? Well, I just cut him off. So I take my interactive trim tool and I cut him off. So there's my third pocket. Okay, and now for me, if I'm going to do this, I've already kind of decided in my head that I want to use a 1/4 inch end mill, blah, blah, blah. Well, it might not be practical. You know, I'm only cutting 3/4 on each side for this 1/2 inch piece. And therefore, I do need to make sure whatever bit that I use can at least cut that deep. And most 1/8 inch end mills only have like a 1/2 inch flute, 7/16 and all.
The bit that we sell at Digital Woodcarver has an 1 3/8. It's a Amana bit, 1/8" end mill. It's got an 1 3/8 flute, or 3/32, should I say, 1 3/32 inch flute. And so that would definitely do it for me. But if I want to stick with my 1/4 inch end mill, I have to be very aware that I'm not going to get that 1/4 inch bit's not going to fit in there. Well, what do? Can I widen this up and just kind of round off into it? Because I need to keep my straight line. So whatever I have to do, this line is the one that has to be edited. I could definitely come in here and kind of just bring this around a little bit. And it's not going to really affect my design and all. It's just going to be kind of more of a step down right here, almost like a little indentation in the leaf, you call it, whatever you want to call this. The same thing here. I want to keep my straight line, so if I change this part so a bit can fit in it, then I need to round this off over here. And then I need to think about down here as well, and I need to really consider putting a radius in this corner. And that applies down here as well. So let's look at where we want to go. With this, I'm going to start here, and I'll go into node editing mode. I'm just going to cut the vector here. And now that I've done that, I can move this part down. Let's go ahead and go back into node editing mode. And I'm going to just grab all of these nodes here. And not that one at the top that I accidentally grabbed. So hold your shift key and turn that off. And I'm going to, I got another node hiding in plain sight. So first thing I got to do is let me move him down a little bit. There we go. Now I can come in and grab all of these nodes. Hold down my shift key and grab this extra one up here that I couldn't get a hold of. And I'm just going to very simply use my down arrow key because I want to keep somewhat of a shape. Now I'm going to get kind of a jagged line here, but I'll smooth that out in a minute. Right now all I care about is kind of getting this arc down and all. I'll kind of be rotating and smoothing things in a moment. But I believe that should, if I were to get out of that for a moment and draw a 1/4 inch diameter bit or circle, in order to be able to kind of get in there, I've got to, you know, if I'm pocketing this out, my bit has to be able to, you know, get, you know, up on it. So the thing that I need to do is I'm going to go into node editing. I'm going to select all of these nodes again. Including these two. And all except for this one I'm going to turn off, and this end one I'm going to turn off. I'm going to have all those selected and make sure I got them all selected. I'm going to hit the letter D on my keyboard and delete them. I'm going to turn this into a arc or a Bezier curve, either one. I'll go with a Bezier curve, and I'm going to pull this down to roughly here. And I'm going to now kind of clean up my curve. Let's pull this down a little further because I'm in the wrong place. And let's pull up this curve and kind of smooth it back out. And then I'm going to take and I'm going to, this vector, I'm going to join it with a smooth curve. And then I'm going to kind of just fix this here. And I'm going to change that to an arc. Now my 1/4" bit should be able to fit into that part, and it did not distort my leaf too much. Okay, it's not going to make it too bad, too awful looking and things. And it's the sacrifice that I have to endure because I'm using a 1/4" bit. If I was using an 1/8" bit, I could reduce that by half, you know, type of thing. Now here and here, once again, my 1/4" bit's not going to get in there, so I really got to kind of, you know, change this around. And basically I'm just going to be kind of redefining my leaves a little bit, those little leaves. So if we come in here, I'm just going to come into these nodes here, and I'm going to delete them. Oop, not all of them. Let's try that again. Let's grab these. D on your keyboard, not the delete key. And I'm going to turn this into a Bezier curve, so that way I can still kind of I'm going to smooth this one. There we go. And again, as a reference, I'll use my 1/4" diameter bit. See, a 1/4" is really big, right? You know, for this small part. But we got to do what we got to do. And so if I use that as kind of a reference, let's see how ugly that makes that. Not too bad, not too bad. This one I gotta kind of bite the bullet on this one. Man, I honestly to think about changing my bit diameter. All right, I tell you what, I'm not going to cut this one all the way out. I'm just going to pocket this down quite a bit, and I am going to use a 1/4" end mill with that, and I'm not going to change any of the shape on this. And for this guy here, I am going to, I want to cut it out. So I'm going to use my fillet tool, and I need an 1/8" radius. And I should be able to put that radius there. I should be able to all right, it won't let me radius here. My fillet, it won't let me fillet there. So ooh, don't want to do that. All right, so I should be good there. Okay, now that'll take care of my 3 pocket areas. I'm gonna this one's not gonna cut all the way through. I'm just gonna pocket that down. It'll be a little decorative kind of recess. All right, it is what it is in here. I'm gonna just have to do a V-carve type of tool path where it's a V-carve with a flat depth type of deal. So my end mill will get what it can, and then my V-bit will come back and do the decorative edges, at least to give me these decorative edges and all. But here, I've got to widen these areas out. I have no choice. So, ooh, doggy. And I'll come back, Debbie, and answer your question and everything. And Baron, I'm not sure. I haven't noticed any buffering yet, but everybody else, let me know if you're getting any buffering. All right, on this one, I'm going to cut the vector down here, and then over in this corner, I'm going to cut it here. And what I'm going to do with this is, now that that vector is basically all alone, I'm going to offset it. And I'm going to offset inward a distance of 1/4 of an inch. Deleting the original. Okay. And then I'm going to just very simply take this node here. I'm going to take these nodes here and delete them, D on the keyboard. Same thing with that one. And here, I'm going to take these guys and D on the keyboard to delete them. And I'm going to go ahead and I should have, now my 1/4 inch bit should fit in there much better. And so I'm basically going to select, get out of node editing mode, and I'm going to select these two here. And I'm going to join with a smooth curve once and twice. Okay. So again, it did not distort my shape too much or anything like that, but it gave me what I needed for my bit to have clearance and everything. This one, it is what it is. I will most likely end up doing this as a V-carve pocket. We'll see how everything comes together. Now, Debbie was asking, by cutting off the tail at the top, doesn't that change the distance between the frame and the design? Won't you have to change the part to the right to make the distance equal to the frame? And what she, if Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you were referring to is that little tail that was at the end of this piece. And basically, if I took my entire part here and I grouped it together, if I came back and I moved back up, micro movements, hold down your control key for micro movements. And here. Okay. What Debbie is talking about is, I got a little bit further to move back. Bear with me a second. Right there. What Debbie's referring about is this line. So by that tail, because the tail kind of swept up a little bit into this part, does that throw, everything off? Well, the very simple fix to that is ungroup, go into my node editing, and I'm going to basically select this, and I'm going to select these nodes here, and I'm just going to use my control up arrow key to bring them up into alignment there to even that part back out. Okay. Debbie had a good visual on that. She saw that, hey, by cutting that little tail off there, doesn't that change where that, this end piece is going to meet where that end piece met that you cut off? And it did. And so I ended up having to all I had to do was move this line up and just basically make it level with this one here. Okay. All right. Now, So I've got pocket cuts and I've got profile cuts. But now, how do I address the issue on my profile cut when I'm profiling cutting? How do I address the issue that my bit doesn't leave this radius here? Very simple. I put the radius in there myself. So what we need to do is let's get back to where we need to be. Let's get this part back lined up. Okay, this one part I wasn't expecting to take the whole darn class. And what I need to do is I need to know when my profile bit is coming and cutting this profile here that it's going to create a rounded, I'm overlapping a little bit. Bear with me a second. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. I need to create that. I need to create that little radius there. Might as well, right? So I'm going to basically just come in and let's see here. So if I were to, if this were to cut with my router bit's going to leave that little radius there. So why not just go ahead and get it in there to begin with, right? And so I'll go ahead and is it not going to let me, not going to let me go? When your scissor tools and things like that don't work, there's an obvious reason. And one of the obvious reasons is I can't trim to a group, so I got to ungroup this stuff. All right, so if I trim this away and trim this away, that'll give me my little radius there. Okay? That little radius. All right. And there's a node right here. This little chunkadilly right there. I don't need those, so let's get rid of them. Kind of smooth that back out. All right, now up here, same thing. When my bit comes, it's going to kind of, as it goes around this outer edge here, it's going to, create that radius. So we might as well, get it in there already. So let's zoom in here and let's look at what we got going on. And use my trim tool. And again, when it doesn't trim to something, that means there's something wrong. Is it not overlapping? And it's not overlapping, right? So I gotta make that happen. Let's get up on it. Work with me, Buster. Work with me. All right, let's see what else is. Oh, too much of an overlap. Bear with me a second. We'll get her. We'll get her, Tom. There's an easier way to do this. I could have just arced it. I'm just trying to be visual in some way. I could have just drawn a simple arc, but I'm just trying to be a little bit visual so you can kind of get what I'm cooking. All right. That should be enough to be able to trim. Okay. And what that will do is that will give me kind of that little sweep. That's all I care about, is my bit's going to just sweep around as it's doing the profile cut. Okay. All right, let's create some tool paths and let's cut this part out. We've already got our swept profile tool path. Now the profile cut, well, that profile cut, you know, when it comes around, my bit's going to come here. It's going to connect to this, around to this, and to here. So I need to make that connection. You know what I mean, Vern? So I got to join, you know, all of those all those pieces and parts together, and if I come in, I just want to make sure I'm not overlapping too much. I'm right on the line there. I'm right above the line there. So let's, I want this to be exactamundo. Zooming in and out is the roller wheel on your mouse. Very beneficial. Okay. All right. All right. So my profile toolpath. Let me ungroup my parts and all. Profile toolpath. If I come in here, my profile is going to come around and that line is going to be gone, right? And what does that do by trimming that line away? It gets rid of everything and puts my profile exactly where it needs to be. Okay. So now let's go ahead and create our profile toolpath. It is what it is there. That's fine. It's going to be what it is. All right. 1/4 inch end mill. We would add tabs for sure, but let's go ahead and get this part cut out because it took way. Save and save often. Absolutely right. Let's go ahead and save while we're here. Thank you very much, David Kinsey, for throwing that shout out to me. Because that's important. And let's look at the initial shape, of our profile here. You can kind of see that outline there, right? All right, now our pocket cuts. I really am going to lose some of the detail in these pocket cuts, but it's okay. That's going to be a pocket cut with a 1/4 inch end mill. And by the way, I need to, I'm an idiot because this is a two-sided part, so I should not be cutting all the way through my material on one half. I should be using the other half as well. So for this pocket cut, I'm going to be cutting 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch end mill. Now, something very that we need to think about. Remember now on these are going to be stepping down a bit. And I really wanted this whole thing to step down a bit, which it will. It will. Because there's going to be yeah, you'll see in just a moment. But, oh, there was a point to this. I could use my V-bit with a flat depth of sorts. So it's not really a pocket cut, so it's not going to work and all. But if I wanted to try to V-carve or chamfer these edges, I could use my V-bit and an inside profile cut to give me some nice little definition here where the router bit's not going to, the end mill's not going to do it for me. So all of these things we can explore after we get the initial tool pass created. Now on these tool paths, remember I got to step down. Remember, because my little design, my little profile stepping in. And remember I said it was about 1.3, right? 1.3. So from my 1.5, which is a 0.2 difference. And so my start depth on those pockets is going to be a 0.2, at least a 0.2. And then it's going to be cutting to 0.73 for a total of 0.75. I'm going to be using my 1/4 inch end mill, and I'm going to be calculating this. This is going to be my inside pockets. Okay, let's put our profile down where it belongs. So let's look at our inside pockets here. If we preview, and I want this to be a offset, a more optimized toolpath is an offset, not a raster. So let's calculate that again. There we go. Let's go ahead and preview that selected toolpath. Okay, so you can kind of see where we're going with that. All right. Now, on this inside piece here, I mean, for it to look proper, it needs to be cut as well. You know, all the way through and all that stuff. So I've got some serious decisions to make. If I just pocket this, if I include this with this pocket here, and I calculate that, I'm not going to get as big as a swirl all the way around, right? I'm not going to get as big as a swirl all the way around. And so if we were to preview that, I'm only getting kind of that semi swirl, you know, and it doesn't really curl up like it should. Well, I'm thinking about doing a little bit of a chamfer with a V-bit to dress this up some. But here, because my bit isn't going to be able to, you know, cut out as much as it can, I'm just going to do a V carve on this, just a very simple pocket. It's not going to cut all the way through. So I'm going to use a V-bit, and I am going to use a 60-degree V-bit on this. I do need to start at my 0.2, and I'm going to calculate that. And we'll preview that cut. Okay. It's going to look weird until everything is cut out and stuff. Not the, you know, the prettiest little design. And also it looks weird because 0.2 inches of this top surface has to be removed. You'll see that in just a moment. All right, so we've got our swept profile. We've got our inside pockets, and we have our profile cut. And then we have our V-carve. Well, there's one major piece missing here. I've got to get all of this area down to 0.2 here. So what one of the things that I'm going to need to do is I'm going to have to come here, and I'm going to just snap down here. I'm going to snap up here, and I'm going to come all the way across and snap here. Now, I could just finish this rectangle off and all that, but what's the point in, you know, doing that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to right about here. And then over. And this or whatever shape you want to call it, that is going to get pocketed. Pocketed. 0.2 inches, 1/4 inch end mill, calculate. Okay. All right, let's preview that. I probably don't need to be going that slow with my preview. Yeah, let's not do that. Let's let me turn my simulation down to fast. Undo my tool animation and preview the swept profile, the inside pockets, the profile cuts, the V-carve, and the pocket cut, which the pocket cut would not, that would be up here. Profile cuts always last. these two bits will be run at the same time. So let's see here. We'll do this, and that way these three toolpaths can be run all at once because they all use the same bit. So I've only got 1, 2, 3 tools that I'm going to be using for this. So let's go ahead and preview all the toolpaths except for, I got to change this. This is going to be 0.75. Calculate. That's the profile cut. You remember? All right. So let's preview this. So how many of you still with me on this? Or did I lose you anywhere? Okay. So as you can see here, if we look, that pocket coming down 0.2, that brings this part inside to this lip here. Okay. So that way there's like a step in to this part. All right. Now, let's go ahead and flip this, and I got to, you know, I'll end up mirroring all this and creating the other second corbel, but we got to think about how are we flipping this and what, you know, what do we got to do? Well, first thing I got to do is I got to create my alignment pin holes, and so I'm going to take and I'm going to grab a 1/4 inch hole and put it here. Let's try 0.25. That would probably be more appropriate. And then somewhere over here, all right, on these two here, they are atypical design as far as the alignment. They're not straight across from each other and all that, and it's fine for the method that I'm using. These will be pocket cut or drilled. They're going to be drilled 3/8 of an inch deep with a 1/4 inch end mill. We're going to peck and retract. We're going to calculate this. Now, sometimes, which I ran into today, sometimes you can, you know, on the smaller machines, the mini carvers and all, you might get a little flex in your alignment pin holes. Could be a little off and everything, and you want to slow down that plunge rate, so that bit, because we're plunging into wood, we don't want it to oversize the hole. We want it to be nice and tight for our alignment pin holes. So keep that in mind. Small steps down, 1/16 of an inch or so, peck, you know, when you're drilling, and you know, a slow plunge rate. All right, so that's going to be my alignment pin holes. Okay, now I want to basically copy all of this to the other side. Copy to other side. Okay, that way when I flip this part, these alignment pin holes will not be drilled on the other side of the board. These holes are actually going to, these alignment holes are actually going to be cut in the waste board. So after side one is all carved, you're going to move the board out of the way. You're going to touch off to your waste board, and you're going to drill these holes. Okay? Or touch off to your table if you have a 3/4 inch, whatever the case may be, because remember, we're touching off on the bottom of the material. You want to drill these alignment pin holes separately, and on the waste board, not on the project board. So, but we still have to create the tool path. It's a drilling operation, and it's only going to be, for me, 1/4 of an inch deep. I'm only going to drill 1/4 inch into my waste board. 1/4 inch end mill. I'm going to use pecking, and this is going to be my alignment pins, alignment holes, waste board. We're going to calculate that. Okay, I'm not going to preview them because they do not get cut into the board. But now, you know, my tool pass here. So once again, I've got to recreate my tool pass. So we're going to do a pocket cut to 0.2 with a 1/4 inch end mill. All right. we're going to do our pocket cuts on these 3 parts. This is going halfway through the material, so 0.75, 1/4 inch end mill. Oh, actually, remember we added this one in. I'm still thinking about how I want to handle this. I may want to do some chamfering on these, but that one's got to get added into that pocket toolpath. We ended up adding it on the other side. Okay, and then we have our molding toolpath. Okay, remember we've got to reverse the direction. Okay, and we need to make sure that we are using the correct direction here as we were on the other one, which I believe we are. Just to validate that, I'm going to close this out for a second and come back over here. And if I were to go back into my swept profile, I'm going to be on that bottom edge of that straight edge there. That's where my green node should be. So that I should be very well in the same area here. Okay, bottom of that node. There you go. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And we're going to calculate 1/8 inch end mill. To use that, we're going to calculate that toolpath. And then our final approach here is our profile cut. And of course, on this cut, we would be using tabs, but I'm not using tabs, so we can cut the part out and take a look at it. But it would be a profile cut, 3/4 of an inch thick with a 1/4 inch end mill. Going to be on the outside of the line. We would add tabs for this, but we'll go ahead and profile toolpath that. And let's go ahead and preview all the sides right now. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of our waste areas and everything. And let's flip this board back upright, how it should be. Okay. Now, if I wanted to I probably would not try to chamfer anything. If I were going to chamfer something, it would be the insides, because I don't want my router bit chamfering into my decorative profile here. So let's just see what a chamfer does for this. Let's see what a chamfer does for this inside edge. And let's see if it's something even worth exploring. It's going to be a profile cut. And we're going to be on the inside of the line. And it's going to be on this part, this part. Yeah, really just those two parts. And we're going to use in my case, I would use a 60, but 90 is fine. Depends on how much chamfer you want. And now I need to, if I were to calculate this toolpath now, and we look at the 2D view, and if I go into solid view here, we can see where, that chamfer is coming in and cutting and things, And because of my radius of my bit, I'm not getting out here where I want to be. But that's not going to give me a chamfer at all. I need to be out over the line. So I need to offset it. And I'm going to be going over the line. And so I should be in a positive direction. I'm going to go half the diameter of my bit, which is about 1/8 of an inch. Actually, I'm going to go, yeah, 1/8 of an inch. Let's calculate that again. If we come in here and look, I went the wrong way like a goofball. Let's make that a negative. It would have been a positive if we were on the outside of the line. All right, so if we look here, you can see now, we're getting that chamfered cut and everything. So let's see if this does anything for us. I mean, if it excites us at all. Let's preview that toolpath. Okay, and let's get rid of this, and let's come over here to the beautiful side where it chamfered. And no, right? Why no? Because look how deep that I cut. You don't go 3/4 of an inch with the chamfer. You only go 1/4 of an inch. We got to start at 0.2. Remember, that's where our where we're going, 0.2. But we need if we're starting down at 0.2. And we're going another 1/4 of an inch down, right? So that's going to be 0.2 down from there, 0.25. Let's calculate. Let's calculate that toolpath again. And let's preview all sides one more time. Remember, we got that inside area pocketed down, that 0.2, what you see being carved right now. That's why our chamfer cut has to start at 0.2. Okay? All right. Let it cut out the other side. Let it just finish its thing. And then we'll flip it back over and we'll take a look and see if it's something that tickles our fancy. All right, so now, right now, you see how rough and everything looks? Well, that's because my preview simulation quality is set to a standard. Okay? It's not set to give me my 100% view. It's very low pixels. So I hate to do this, but just because we can give you a very clear representation of what this is looking like, we're gonna have to step it up a little bit on the preview simulation. And what we will end up doing is we will take questions while this is cutting out. So let's go ahead and preview that, and let's go ahead and take some questions. Does anybody have any questions up to this point while that's previewing out? No questions. Or maybe I haven't asked the question on y'all's end yet. If you have any questions, let me know. Is something like this, I mean, did this little demonstration, even though it took longer than expected, we're not going to be able to get to the Aspire model part. We'll have to do that in another class. We might do a Corbels part 2, but we will get to the little triangle looking one, because that one's quick and simple. But did you pick up anything from this other than did you pick up anything from it? Would it save a lot of time to make it as separate pieces? Well, Debbie, I mean, yes, yeah. I mean, um, making it separate pieces, you're just basically cutting two separate profile cuts, and then you're just gluing and assembling them together at the end. By making them two separate pieces, there may have been some things that we not necessarily had to do as far as radiuses and all that stuff. But I think we still would have had to do that. There would have been no way around it. And so that's a tough question. It may or may not have been necessary or not. Or it may, I'm sorry, not necessary, but it may or may not have, slowed us down by doing it as one piece versus two. I think it's probably pretty much going to be about the same, because you're still pocketing that part down, that center area down 0.2 before you actually cut it out. Your profile cut, you're cutting. I think Debbie, it's going to probably be about the same time. If it's not, Debbie, what I'll do is after class, I will go back to the original before blending everything together. I'll create a toolpath, and if the time is the same or different or whatever, I will post it in the comments section of the Vectric class and this video for those of you, or not the Vectric class, but the Facebook group under this link. But I will also post it in the description of the video or as a comment to this video. So for anybody that's not in our Facebook group as an owner and is curious about that answer as well. Okay, Aspire is saying there's another update as for 9.510. Is there anything special we have to do to update from 9.5? No, you just have to click on that link and run it. It's a patch, Debbie, and in that patch, they're fixing some enhancements on some of the tools. They were cleaning up some of the little bugs and everything. So definitely just click on that link in the top right corner of your software and run that patch. That's what I did before I started the show. I ran my patch to the 9.510. Absolutely, you could use thinner material for this design, for sure. The only reason why I went with 1.5" thick material is because I wanted a thick corbel. And so let's go ahead and delete this waste area here. Now let's take a look at, let's get rid of this and let's turn this a little bit and kind of zoom out. Okay, so on the inside here, that is the chamfer, right? That's the chamfer. And if we go to the other side, let it regenerate itself. That is not chamfered. Let's see if I can straighten it out. Okay. So this is the side just cut, no chamfer on it. All right. No chamfer on it. Now, very interesting thing that has occurred here. My profile and everything is backwards on the other side. Look at this side profile. This is normal. This is what it should look like, right? But let's take a look. Let's flip this over. Let's get back over to toggle between side 1 and side 2. Let's get rid of that piece. Look at my profile up at the top. And cut it inward. All right. So we've got to fix that. Now, aside from that little faux pas, right up at the top and all that stuff. Aside from that little faux pas, chamfered, not chamfered. You know, that's kind of that tis the question. Yeah, you can still use 1.5 inch for the frame because Debbie, that actually gets cut out a little different. If you're going to cut it, you can cut it all out of 3/4 inch material, and you can cut it all out of 3/4 inch material, and you can miter and glue your part together, and then that centerpiece in and everything. You would not need 1.5 inch material for the frame, 3/4 inch, because this is 3/4 inch thick here. So imagine if you were to cut this part out. You would just be cutting out this rectangular shape with that profile cut into it at the bottom. Very simple to do, and you know, maybe I'll elaborate a little bit more on that in just a second. All right, so we've got to address an issue. My profile on the inside got carved inward. Let's see if anybody knows why. What do you see? My profile was upside down because, of course, it was mirrored and everything, you know. Yeah, fun times. You know what I mean? All right, so let's recalculate. We got to recalculate that swept profile. All right, got to recalculate that swept profile. Let's reset our preview. I'm going to take the chamfer out of the equation. I'm not a big fan of it. I may look at doing something a little different with that. But I'd most likely just break the edges with some sandpaper and everything. So I'm going to remove the chamfer out of this to save some time. And I'm going to go back to a lower resolution on the preview simulation quality for time's sake. And we're going to one more time with that newly adjusted swept profile and all. We're going to, and let's take a close look at something here. Let's preview all the sides one last time. See if we can get it to speed up for us. But Debbie, let me show you real quick on if you were cutting all the parts out separately to assemble together. Let me show you the way that you would do that quick and easy with just 3/4 inch material. All right, let's see here if that got both sides out. All right. Now, what is happening here? Okay, what's happening here? So there's a couple of things happening here. One, my parts are not lining up. You know, my pocket cuts and everything, they're not lining up, or you know, my pieces and all from the mirrored side, flipping one side to the other. And it's causing this lip right here. And I'm assuming if we turn this around completely backwards, you can see that lip is off all the way around. Because, why is it? Because it's not an alignment issue with my vectors. It's an alignment issue with my tool path. Do you recall on side 1 when we created the profile toolpath, we stepped away. We did an allowance of 0.0313. Okay? And therefore on the second side when we created that profile toolpath on the bottom side, we should have done the same thing and we didn't. And so what you don't want is to do that or find that mistake a little late in the game and ultimately end up like having this part all misaligned. So if you got to be, when it's a double-sided part and it's basically you're mirroring the same part on the other side, make sure if you're, because it's pretty much going to be the same tool pass all the way around, make sure that your tool pass are to the T the same thing. Okay, that we don't miss a little step or a little offset or a little this or a little that, and that way you don't end up with any discrepancies, you know, in your part. Okay, let's get this upright again. A little bit of sanding, a little bit of smoothing. Now, of course, we don't get a very good showing here on the edges and stuff. You get pretty much what you get and all. But all in all, just by tracing one of our models to get kind of a general shape, creating a small little edge profile for that step in, not a bad looking shelf corbel. Something that you could, help people go to Lowe's and buy them all the time, or different things. So, nice piece of walnut or something, make a little nice walnut shelf, whatever the case may be, pine, but you can make some decorative things. And now utilizing that, you can really get into it. Now, usually we run a couple hours, so it's 7 to 8, 8 to 9, right? We're already at 9:20. We're over. I ran late on this one, and it kind of eliminated the others. So here's your guys' choice. We can do a part 2 of this another night, because I would like to show you the seahorse, little corbel, and experiment model. I can show you one or the other right now. Or we can answer some questions, call it a night, and say that we learned a lot here, and then pick up part 2, the next time, and we'll do it as a 2-part because there's about 4 different designs. This is just very simple, basic 2D stuff. I didn't get into the 3D, and the seahorse being one of them, but there was some other stuff that I wanted to do, and we just don't have enough time to do this. One of the reasons why we don't have all the time, and one of the reasons why I can't show you everything, is because of the fact that I was running late this evening and I was not pre-prepared for the class. I can get pre-prepared, and we can cover a lot of ground in the next class on part 2 of this if you guys want to do that. Think about that for a second. And while you do, you know how YouTube looks at the, YouTube picks out a keyframe and all for like the cover photo. Try to find a nice little photo for it to be a cover photo so I don't have to create one, a custom photo. So I'm going to park that there for a moment. Yeah, I think so. Okay, good. That's good. I wish everybody else chime in there. Part 2 sounds good to me. Good. Because there are some very cool things that we can do with this. I mean, shelves. People always buy shelves for their bathrooms, for their kitchens, for their Florida rooms and family rooms and dining rooms and things. So we can do all kinds of nice little things and get a lot of different project ideas out of this and stuff. And we haven't even explored the surface of creating some very decorative 3D ones. Now, these corbels, not necessarily for shelves, but fireplace mantles, kitchen island bar corbels, decorative things. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different where these little cornices or whatever you want to call them, come into play. And I really wanted to be able to show you guys some of the more decorative 3D type designs and things and how you would go about making those. I'm going to show you how you can go about making them in your Vectric VCarve Desktop or Pro, but I also want to kind of dabble a little bit into the Aspire and show you some things. So we'll make it a part 2. So let's open the floor for any questions and answers you have. And Debbie had a question. Can we make this out of... yeah, project displays. William, perfect. Exactly. I love it. Project displays. But Debbie had an answer. Can I make this out of thinner material? And can we make it in 2 parts? Does that save up time? Those are 2 very good questions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip back over to side 1 here. And I'm going to copy these vectors to another layer because I don't want to change these. I'm just going to make a copy of them to a new layer, and I'm going to just call this a sample smaller part. Okay, and we'll click that, and that way I can turn off my original layer and work with that sample smaller part. And let's go in and address some of these questions. So 1, all right, our part here. Debbie, the 2 shelves, or the 90-degree bracket, let's call it. First thing that I'm going to do is I want, how wide I want that bracket is going to be up to me. So let's say if my centerpiece is going to be 3/4 of an inch thick, and I'm going to be taking about 0.2 off each side. That's 0.4, so I'm only going to be about a little under 3/8 or what have you, and so I may not want to do that, right? I may not want to lose that 0.2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that centerpiece a full 3/4 inch thick, and I'm going to make my 2 90-degree pieces wider, and I'm going to account for that 0.2 in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 2 rectangles, and their length are going to be 8 1/4 and 8 1/4. But the width, if I got 3/4, I want a little bit of overhang on each side. So let's give it a 1/4 of an inch overhang on each side. Knowing that I'm going to kind of be recessing in for my little profile, I'm going to add that 0.2 to that 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go 0.45 over the 3/4. 0.2, bear with me a second. 0.2 is 0.4, and then 1/4 and 1/4 is half. So I'm going to go about 1 inch wide. Okay, and I want 2 of those, so I'll just very simply double click on this, put this in transform mode. All right, hold down your control key when you want to make 2. All right, now my profile, I'm still going to use my profile here, okay? And my profile is going to be going around both sides. You know what I mean? It's gonna be creating that profile around both sides, not the bottom, just both sides. Because you got to think of these. If we were looking at these at the end, let's imagine that this 1 inch by 3/4. Let's go 1 inch wide. 3/4 inch thick, 0.75. Okay. My profile is going to be coming in on both sides of this, and all this little guy here. But we're going to cut them out long ways. So I've got to create the vector for this profile to run. And basically all I'm going to do is just use these vectors. So swept profile, molding toolpath. Oops. Let's close this tool. Molding toolpath. Let's grab this here, and we got to do one at a time. So the first thing I need to do is I need to reverse the direction so that oh, aha. I'm a goofball. Give me a second. We don't want to do that. We got to get rid of the bottom span on these because we're not cutting. The backside's flat. Backside's flat. So node editing. delete this span. This one here, delete this span. Okay. Those are going to be the backs. Those are the parts that are going to get mitered and glued together. All right, one more time. Molding toolpath. We're going to select our profile, our part, and here. And we need to reverse the direction, so it's on the coming inward, right? And 1/8 inch end mill. Now I believe I can fly. I can believe that I've got my profile going in the right direction. We'll know that in about 2 seconds. Let's calculate this, and let's see what we kind of get going on here. So that looks just about right. Okay. So let's reset our preview and let's preview this selected toolpath. Okay, so no, that's going in the wrong direction. It's going in the wrong direction. So let's go back in here and reverse that direction and calculate that toolpath one more time. Reset the preview. Preview the selected toolpath. Okay, very good. Now profile, let's do this one here. Let's move him over a little bit more. Let's do him. He's going to be also a molding toolpath with this guy. Again, reverse the direction and calculate the toolpath. Okay, preview the selected toolpath, so on and so forth. Now, we use those vectors to create that molding profile toolpath. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, on a new layer, I'm going to copy to a new layer, and I'm going to call this my profile. Let's call it my frame profile. And that way I can come into my frame profile and I need to close these guys back off. So join with a straight line, join with a straight line, and these both are going to get profile cut. Okay, so profile toolpath. I'm going to cut, in this case, imagine we're using 3/4 inch material, okay, but I didn't change my board size. I can. Here, let's do that. Let's change our board size. 0.75. It's going to ask me if I want to recalculate my tool paths. And no, I don't, because I'm going to go back. This is just for a sample. But I do want to recalculate these two. And then same thing with this one, recalculate him. Okay. Now I want to create my profile toolpath going through my 3/4 inch material with my 1/4 inch end mill on these two vectors here. Turn those toolpaths off. We'll calculate that. All right. And let's preview those 3 toolpaths. Okay. Okay. So this creates my 2 parts. Let's come back in here. This creates my 2 parts and things, and I would just miter one end of each and glue them together in a 90-degree frame. Okay. So now, essentially, these 2 swept profiles, they're going to take a while. And these 3 guys here, let's look at our time in comparison. So about 40 minutes, okay? 40 minutes for those 2 parts. All right, let's look at our other project overall, and let's see what the whole time was on our overall other project. We had our swept profile. We had our V-carve, our inside pockets, our pocket cut that was coming down, and our profile cut. The overall time for that whole project, one side of it, was 56 minutes, okay? Overall, the whole project, 56 minutes, one side. So you're looking at about an hour, about 2 hours, all right, for that one corbel, okay? So now, if we, on these three pieces, or these two pieces, these three profiles, we're at 40 minutes already. So our centerpiece, that's got to be a quick one, right? In order to stay kind of competitive, because I think they're going to be about the same time. Let's go in here and let's get our part. And let's take, and I'm going to just very simply snap some lines. Oops, not text, lines, Laney, lines. I'm going to snap some lines here. Space bar. Oops. That line went a little crooked. Bear with me a second. Line 90 degrees. Okay. And now I'm going to come in and trim away. Oops, wrong one. Oh, dadgummit. The reason why that's trimming away is because I'm overlapping here. So real quick, let me fix that overlap. Just had to make sure that was him. Let's see here. Bear with me, bear with me, bear with me. Gonna delete that span. And then on this one, delete that span. Use my scissor tool. I should be able to trim that line away and that line away. Ah, trim the wrong one on that one. This line away. There we go. Oops, I trimmed the wrong one on both of them. Hold on a second. This line away and this line away. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Got a little bit of an overlap here. I'll close him off in a minute. All right, so here's my part. Let's go ahead and let's make sure all the vectors are closed. Select all open vectors. All right, so he's closed. Okay. All right, so on this one we had our pocket cuts. This is going to be pocket cut 0.75. No sense in doing it as a two-sided job, really, if it's going to be here. 1/4 inch end mill, calculate that tool path. And then profile cut. This should be good still. Profile cut. 3/4 inches, calculate that tool path. And preview all of those visible tool paths. Get rid of the overhang. So my 3 parts, you know. Now on this one, this part is 3/4 of an inch. if I do not have on here 3/4 of an inch, my area here, then I would widen that up. I would widen these pieces up till I had 3/4 of an inch right here, because that's what glues to the top and the bottom of that. But that being said, I think you kind of get the idea. And let's go into 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if we look at the time on this, we're at 55 minutes. So we were at 56 minutes per side on that project, so 2 hours, versus if this was just cut out of 3/4 inch, 2 pieces, it would be 55 minutes for the whole project, on a 1/2 inch part. And then you just you spend the the 5 minutes miter cutting the 2 ends and glue everything together. All right, so hopefully that somewhat explained it, or answered your question at least. Would be quicker. Now on this, seriously though, it would be important. Let me pull this straight on the screen here. And so right now I'm looking at my X direction. My X, I'm at 12.4218. If I come over here, 12.0276. So I'm only about 3/8 of an inch right there, a little under. So these two parts would have to be widened. They would be widened probably to maybe about 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches instead of 1 inch. So that center piece is 3/4 of an inch wide. You with me on that, Debbie? Everybody? These parts would be widened out to probably about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches, so that this center piece here is 3/4 of an inch wide, because that's what attaches to the top and down the back side of this part. Okay. Any other questions? Any questions? Any questions? Okay. So just definitely, it's something to think about. Something to think about, whether you make it as one part or make it as two. Now, when it comes to the 3D model corbels and all, you would be making them as one part. That's why I kind of focused on that. And all. But making these out of 2 parts and gluing them together, there's nothing wrong with that. And then, of course, on the side where the shelf is going to be covering, and on the back where it's going to be in the wall, you can reinforce that, glue part, which you really wouldn't need to, but you can secure with countersunk screws into there, on those parts, into, here, even down here and up here, or just glue, and what have you. So that would be just an interesting thought. And then, there's a lot of other decorative pieces. Now, if I wanted this piece to curl around a little bit more instead of stopping there, give me a little bit more of a swirl right here. Or heck, if I wanted this part to go all the way around and literally this piece would be floating in here, which I probably wouldn't do, I can do that. But one of the things here is, if I were to just, I could wrap this around further, or just make this part wider, come in here, then I can get more of that swirl around in there. And again, it's just, all you're doing is your node editing type of things, and you're spreading it out more. Let's see, if I pick a vector, any vector, and cut it there. If I took And by the way, all these nodes are not necessary at all. We could absolutely delete every single one of them and just create a Bezier curve with 2 nodes. that will shorten up the time frame, you know, because the nodes, all of these are these nodes and everything. These are lines. These are lines in your G code and all of that. You know, something to keep in mind. This will make sense in a minute. Actually, I'm not going to do it that way. That was stupid. Why would I do it that way? Let's do it this way. Let's get back to here where I was. Let's cut the vector right there. Cut it. Okay. And then we're going to put the transform mode here. We're going to rotate. Now, if I click on this center box here while I'm in transform mode, you know, I can get my pivot point to pop up. And if I grab this pivot point and I move it down here to this corner, I can now pivot off of that point. Okay? I can pivot off of that point. And okay, let's size that down a little bit. And then I'm going to take these two vectors here and I'm going to join them with a smooth curve. And I'm going to take and go into node editing mode and I'm going to fix that curve. Let's get rid of some of these nasty looking jogs here. Let's take these and hit D on our keyboard to get rid of that. Let's get rid of this. And let's pull this back into a Bezier curve. And let me fix this little issue that I created for myself down here. All right, so with that little fixed, if I go in back and find my pocket cut, select on that there and let's calculate this. Preview, let's reset that preview and preview the bear with me. Preview the visible toolpath. Okay, I went blank there for a second. Thank you, Ronald. All right. So, you know, you can get that swirl to come more around. And we could have finessed it and cleaned it up a little bit more, you know, whatever the case may be. But just long story short, you know, however you want to do, you know, whatever shape you want. And anyway, well, guys, if there are any other questions, if there are not any other questions, then we're going to go ahead and call it a night. And I want to thank you for your time. And hopefully you kind of picked up something out of this. And, you know, so we've got our 2-part piece here, or we've got our full-on 1-piece part, either way. And they both are about the same time, but one's going to be an hour longer, or double it, because you're doing it on 2 sides versus the thinner material, which is cutting on 1 side. Okay? All right. You're welcome, guys. I appreciate your time and hanging out with me. Hopefully it was something, not too boring and interesting for you. Give it a try, make some decorative shelves, and I'd love to see what they look like and all. And now keep in mind your shelf board, right? The shelf board that's going across the top. You can create a decorative profile to go around the outer edge of that shelf board. The same way that we created the profile in here using that molding toolpath, so you can have a nice little decorative edge around your, the outer 3 sides of your shelf board as well. So keep that in mind when you're cutting the shelf board out. Now, of course, a lot of people will just take the shelf board over to the table saw and cut it out. Maybe run it through the router table with a profile bit in it, which is absolutely acceptable, definitely. It's going to be time saving and all, but if you didn't have a router table or router bits or handheld routers, all you had was your CNC machine, you can absolutely achieve that on your CNC as well. Okay. All right, guys and girls. Y'all have a Rusty. Yep, we're just walking out as you're walking in, buddy. But catch us on part 2. There will be a part 2 to this, Rusty Nails, and we'll see how we go. And you're welcome, William, on both accounts for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I will create a project file for this, and I'll have it available as a download for those of you that are interested in it. Let me clean it up and everything, and any of you interested, I'll have it available as a download link in the Facebook group as well as in the YouTube video for the project file. Okay, in the description of the YouTube video when it gets uploaded and all. Give me a little bit on that and I'll have everything in there. All right, everybody, until next time, I'll see you soon.